Greetings, fellow Toastmasters. This is Distinguished Toastmaster and past District Director Cassandra Diva of Dialogue Lee. It gives me great pleasure to present you with a specially recorded content of Members Pivot to Pathways. Many of you are familiar with the fact that District 103 Toastmasters made the attempt to conduct this as a live webinar a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, many of you were unable to make the call. For those of you that did make the call, we had technical difficulties. Due to the fact that either you were unable to connect with us or you could not hear when you connected with us, I am presenting you with this specially recorded content now. As we go throughout the content, you will find that I will refer to various handouts, various information, and most of that information you will be able to find on the District 103 website. Simply visit www.d103tm.org. Click on the Resources tab. That's where you'll find the handouts for the webinar Members Pivot to Pathways. If by chance, when you visit the District 103 Toastmasters website and you cannot find the handouts for this webinar, visit my website at www.divaofdialogue.com. That's www.divaofdialog.com. Click on the Toastmasters tab when you're on the Diva of Dialogue website. There you will find the content along with this recorded content for the Members Pivot to Pathways webinar. All of the handouts are available for you to download. Many of the handouts you will be able to pass on to others in your clubs, yet simply know as you walk through the content with me, you can access all of the handouts in order to follow along and take notes. Again, thank you for joining us for this specially recorded Members Pivot to Pathways webinar. Therefore, let's officially begin. How many of you would love to have this appliance in your collection where you need to have that in order to make it work? I can only imagine what some of your expressions are like. That's why I want to ask this question instead. Would you actually prefer to have this appliance or even that one? Yeah, I thought I would get that reaction from you. Many of you, when you saw that appliance with that tool in order to make it work, you more than likely were thinking, Cassandra, what on earth is that? I appreciate you asking the question silently to me, yet I am sure that many of you recognized it as the ice box. The icebox, the original way in which we were able to keep our food cold. Many of you were familiar with it, you understood what it was, yet most of you would prefer those appliances, wouldn't you? The refrigerator, right? The new way in which we're keeping our food cold. For those of you that looked at the original icebox and thought, what on earth is that? Understand that's what some of our new members are considering when they hear us mention the traditional two-track educational program. What on earth is that? Most of our new members, and even some of our seasoned members right now, are looking at the Pathways program as the refrigerator, meaning it's more up to date, it's more modern. I am happy to say that the refrigerator that we know in this day and age is the pivot from the original icebox. Take into account, the reason the icebox existed was for a particular purpose. That was in order to make certain that our food could last long, it would not perish, we would be able to eat it when we needed it. The refrigerator has the same purpose. It's simply a more modernized version of the icebox. I say the vision of the icebox and the refrigerator are the same, even though the tool in which to make our foods last longer changed. The vision for both the icebox and the refrigerator is the same, and that is to make certain that our food could last longer. Icebox, refrigerator. Two different strategies. The icebox was the first strategy to keep our food cold. The refrigerator became the second strategy to keep our food cold. The refrigerator, as I said before, is a more modernized way in which to keep our food cold, and that is why I'm using the refrigerator and the icebox as a way to bring you into today's world of the Pathways online program. Fellow Toastmasters, as I mentioned, we are in a moment of pivot. Pivot. In this webinar with me, you are going to learn what a pivot is, why we are pivoting, as well as how we should pivot. What is a pivot? I ran across a great definition from author Eric Ries, or Eric Ries, I believe is how he pronounces his name. Eric says, a pivot is a change in strategy without a change in vision. I love that definition. A change in strategy without a change in vision. Remember I said that the vision for the icebox and the refrigerator were the same. Remember also how I said the purpose of the icebox and the refrigerator are the same. Well, take into account that's the same with our two-track educational program and Pathways. It is simply, though, a pivot, a change in the way in which we're getting to that vision. The two-track educational program is the program that most of us who have been around for some time have actually experienced. The communication track along with the leadership track were intended to get us from being a new member through the growth and development as a communicator and leader by using two tracks. The end goal was to make certain that we could become what's known as a distinguished Toastmaster. Keep in mind, out of all the members in Toastmasters International, not every member earned any of the educational awards in the two-track program. We were able to become competent communicators, competent leaders, advanced communicators, advanced leaders, and eventually a DTM. You heard some members being recognized as CLs and ACBs and ALSs and a DTM. Well, those were all of the educational awards affiliated with the two-track educational system. As I said, though, out of all the members in Toastmasters International, not every member earned an educational award. Statistically, there are far fewer DTMs, or Distinguished Toastmasters, than there are CCs, or Competent Communicators. There are also statistically fewer Advanced Communicator Bronzes, Advanced Communicator Golds, Advanced Communicator Silvers, meaning the ACBs and the ACGs and the ACSs, as compared to the CCs, or the CLs, of the Competent Communicator and Competent Leader. Why were our members not advancing through the educational track? Why were they not achieving the educational awards? Who's to really say? Of course, there are a few reasons out there. I'm sure that if we delve a little bit deeper, even with the members of our own club, we would find why members were not advancing through the educational tracks and earning the educational awards. Well, here's a question I have for you. And I am very sure this is a question that Toastmasters International asked several times, and that is, if the members are not advancing through the two-track educational system, if the members are not earning the educational awards, are they truly becoming better communicators and leaders? I think the answer to that question, my fellow Toastmasters, was no, which is why the strategy had to change. Our strategy is now Pathways, the online learning system. Pathways is combining both of the tracks of the traditional two-track system into an online educational program. Members will now have the opportunity to simultaneously work through communication and leadership development. I hesitated there for a moment because I thought to myself, well, in the original two-track system, they were able to do that simultaneously as well. The problem became where members thought they could do one track over the other. really you could not do one track over the other. If you became a DTM, you really had to do both tracks simultaneously. What I love about Pathways, this new strategy of becoming a better communicator and leader, is that you have no decision on choosing one track over the other. Pathways is incorporating both tracks simultaneously, and when you work the program, you will do both tracks and earn that development of becoming a more effective communicator and leader, which is, in my opinion, a much better process. Strategy. Pathways is the new strategy. Remember I talked about the vision and the purpose of the refrigerator? Well, there's also a vision and a purpose to the Pathways program along with the educational program, or I should say the two-track educational program. Both of those exist in order to allow us to become more effective communicators and leaders. As I said, the two-track educational system was the original strategy that was helping us to be empowered to become more effective communicators and leaders. Now, Pathways, which will be the only and the official educational program starting July 1st of 2020, that program will allow us to become more effective communicators and leaders. Strategy is slightly different from what we're accustomed to, for most of us that is. Yet recognize, members, whenever we get a new member in our club, they are automatically enrolled in the Pathways program, which means they do not have any reference of the two-track educational system. It's those of us that were in, that are in, and want to stay in the two-track educational system where we must now pivot. We must change our strategy without changing our vision. Our vision is to become more effective communicators and leaders. To be more exact, our vision is to have communication and leadership skills development from the first choice provider of dynamic, high-value, experiential communication and leadership skills development. I chuckle because I'm reviewing the Toastmasters International Envision Future Statement. Were you aware of the fact that Toastmasters International had what's known as the Envision Future Statement? Most people didn't know that. I wasn't aware of it until I became a program quality director a few years ago, meaning once I journeyed further in leadership, once I became a leader at the district level, I became exposed to more information about this great organization. I learned there is something known as the Envisioned Future Statement. When I first read the Envision Future Statement and I read that it said to be the first choice provider of dynamic, high-value, experiential communication and leadership skills development, something struck me. That something was the fact that Toastmasters International is saying, before you go anywhere else to become a better communicator and leader, come here to Toastmasters International. If you want to make certain for the dollars and cents you spend to improve your communication and leadership skills, check us out here at Toastmasters International because we're going to give you a high value. If you want to make certain that you can use what you learn, you want to make certain you get it from us here at Toastmasters International. To be the first choice provider of dynamic, high-value, experiential communication and leadership skills development, they are letting us know we are going to receive hands-on learning opportunities that will be a great investment for the money we spend, and we will be able to walk away having noticeable as well as transferable skills and experiences as a leader and communicator. I love this statement. And in my opinion, it is this statement that really is fueling the pivot to Pathways. I say that statement, I love it. I really love it for this word, the special word of experiential. Experiential is one of those buzzwords that I've become familiar with because of my profession as a corporate trainer. Whenever I teach a professional development class, clients are hiring me to make certain that their employees are receiving an experiential learning opportunity. Experiential is one of those words that's affiliated with the Toastmasters Envision Future statement, and I also think it is the catalyst to the Pathways program. That new online experience that we are being told Pathways is will provide us with experiential learning. Let's explore a little bit further what experiential learning is all about. Experiential. It simply means relating to, derived from, or providing experience. Experiential. It also means involving or based on experience or observation. Relating to, derived from, or providing experience. Involving or based on experience and observation. Are you noticing a buzzword that's really highlighted in both of those definitions for experiential? Are you also recognizing a phrase that's more than likely familiar anytime you say the word experiential? Say that word out loud. Experiential. What does it sound like to you? Experience, right? Experience. That's the buzzword that's highlighted in both of the definitions. Understand that whenever we are involved in the experiential learning opportunity, that means we are having an experience. I chuckle here simply because I remember the time of rebranding. Do you remember back in 2011 when Toastmasters International rebranded? Do you remember how we received a brand new logo, a brand new slogan, where leaders are made? Do you remember how the colors changed, how the banners changed? Do you also remember how the club mission statement changed? I recognized back in 2011 that something was going on, especially with the fact that our club mission statement changed. The club mission statement changed with a few tweaks in buzzwords here and there. For the most part, the statement was the same. However, there was a word that caught me years ago, and it struck me as being something slightly different from before. We used to say that the club was where we provide a supportive and positive learning environment. Now we say the club is where we provide a supportive and positive learning experience. Yes, I hesitated there for a reason. I hesitated there because I wanted you to let it sink in your mind. Remember, I simply reminded you a moment ago about experiential being about the experience. Understand the change in strategy without the change in vision is for us all to become more effective communicators and leaders. The new strategy of Pathways is a learning experience. The learning experience. Whenever you visit the Toastmasters International website, when you click on the Pathways tab, you'll come to the welcome page. Notice that within the first 6 words is letting you know that Pathways is a learning experience. It's an exciting, flexible, and interactive way to develop your skills and to help others in your club develop theirs. Pathways will help you learn communication and leadership skills that you need to succeed. Pathways will give you an opportunity to build up to 300 unique competencies, 11 specialized learning paths to choose from, online content that you can access anywhere at any time. Also, the content is in various languages. Yet you know the one point that is highlighted for Pathways that resonates with me, that ties into the experience, that is the reason for the pivot? That's the 4th bullet point that says, Pathways will give you real-world transferable skills. The experience. Pathways is a learning experience. They are having us pivot to Pathways. That way we will be able to have more of that experiential learning development. Pivot to Pathways. That's our title for this webinar. That's our call to action as well. This is a call to action for new members, for seasoned members, and for club officers. Pivot to Pathways. Pivot to Pathways is a call to action for new members because new members, you don't have a choice in which educational program you're using. You're automatically enrolled in the Pathways program. The great news is Pathways is something you can access at any time, anywhere, which means as soon as you join, as soon as your membership is processed, you can go ahead and take the assessment, get online, and start choosing your path, as well as begin to work the levels to earn your educational growth. Pathways is a challenge for new members. If new members are having technical difficulties, if new members are not sure which path to take, there are quite a few questions that new members can have. That is why Vice Presidents of Education, it is very important that you connect with your new members and ensure that they can navigate through and have success with Pathways. Yet Pivot to Pathways, new members, that's a call to action for you. Make certain you accept the challenge. Pivot to Pathways is also a call to action for seasoned members. Seasoned members, those are the members that have been around for some time who have had the experience of the two-track educational program. Seasoned members, those of us with educational levels behind our names that are associated with the traditional two-track program. And I'm thinking that as you can hear, I'm stumbling because I'm making the attempt to think of all of those educational awards. You remember the CCCOs, ACBs, ALBs, ACSs, ALSs, ACGs, and DTMs. Yes, 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 yes. Those of us that have those initials behind our name. We earn those educational awards under the two-track educational system. It is now time for us to pivot. The educational program is changing. We will no longer have access to the two-track educational program beginning July 1st of 2020. I want you to focus, new members, or seasoned members, I should say. I want you to focus on what you want to gain out of the new program. Remember that Pathways is going to give us more of a hands-on learning opportunity. It will give us a chance to develop our communication and leadership skills in ways that we've never done before using technology. Seasoned members, understand what your new goal is, the new learning you want to receive from Toastmasters, and make certain that you connect yourself to the Pathways program. Pathways is here to stay. We will no longer be able to work the two-track educational system. Therefore, new seasoned members in particular, make certain that you pivot to Pathways. Finally, Pivot to Pathways is a call to action for all of our club officers. Club officers, you are the role models and the resources in your club. Club officers, you're also the individuals that will help to influence members in your club to use the Pathways program. It is very important that you are using the Pathways program too in order to be that resource and that role model for your members. You know, club officers, I'm stumbling here because I'm realizing something. If you are the club president, the vice president of education, and the club secretary, you have a great responsibility to pivot to Pathways. That is because you're known as the base camp managers for Pathways. As a base camp manager, you're helping your club members to actually navigate through and use the Pathways program. Well, the club president, the vice president of education, and the club secretary are not the only members of the officer team who can help members with the Pathways program. VPMs, Vice President of Membership, VPPR, the Vice President of Public Relations, Club Treasurer, Sergeant at Arms, you can help members as well. As long as you're navigating through and using Pathways yourself, you will be able to be a resource and role model for your club members too. Keep in mind, club officers, all of your clubs will have new members and seasoned members. They need assistance with using Pathways. Therefore, it is a call to challenge club officers for you to pivot to Pathways. When you pivot to Pathways, you will be a great resource and role model for your club. Speaking of club officers, I want you to make certain that you download the latest version of the Club Officer Handbook, or better known as the Club Leadership Handbook by Toastmasters International. The new Club Leadership Handbook is going to make certain that within the Club President section, the Vice President of Education section, as well as the Club Secretary section, it gives you information on serving as the base camp manager. It will also give you some information on the timelines and other key details that you can use for your club officer role. Yet take into account the Club Leadership Handbook is going to let every club officer know about using and becoming a resource for the Pathways program. Again, download the latest version from www.toastmasters.org. By the way, for those of you who have been club officers before and you expect to receive the hard copy from Toastmasters International, simply know that will no longer happen. That is why I'm encouraging you to make sure that you download the PDF version for your file. That way you will have the latest and up-to-date information on Pathways in the resource, as well as all the duties and responsibilities for your role in that resource as well. Club officers, one more note to you in particular. Remember how I said that the Pivot to Pathways is a call to action for you? It is a call to action for you because Toastmasters International is monitoring the officers' adoption rate to Pathways. Did you know that? Well, I didn't know it either until last club year, actually. What I'm showing you on the screen right now is a copy of a report that I put together back in April of 2019 for District 103 Toastmasters. Back in April, I received information on the Pathways adoption rates. That's an actual report that Toastmasters International is keeping, and they are keeping track of the adoption rate of every club, every area, every division, every new member, every seasoned member, as well as all club officers. Pivot to Pathways is a call to action for everyone. Yet club officers take into account. Toastmasters International is definitely monitoring if you as a club officer, if you as a leader of your club, if you as a seasoned member are actually using the Pathways program. This is an insightful report. Of course, the data and the statistics gives you some insight on how you're doing in comparison to other clubs within your area, other clubs within your division, as well as other clubs within your district. If you're curious to see how your club is doing, reach out to your current program quality director of your district. In District 103, you can reach out to the program quality director. The program quality director can provide you with the information. Of course, because this is a report from Toastmasters International, this could be something you could also request from them as well. Yet everyone, remember, Pivot to Pathways is a call to action. It is a reminder to us that the strategy has changed to become a more effective communicator and leader. It is no longer the two-track educational system. It is now the Pathways online learning experience. Therefore, we must all pivot to Pathways. How can we pivot to Pathways? I had someone ask me that before. Well, since June of 2019, I'll tell you, I've been mentioning various ways in which we can pivot to Pathways. And the various ways actually boils down to this: prepare, investigate, volunteer, overcome, talk up. Pivot. I call this the 5-step action plan to pivot to Pathways. The 5-step action plan gives us very specific actions to take in order to help us become more acclimated to the Pathways program. As I said before, next year on my birthday, yes, July 1st, 2020, all of us will be in the Pathways program. Every new member, every seasoned member, every club officer will be using the Pathways program. That means we will be deciding paths, and we will begin to work through and complete levels. That is why I say the first action to take in order to pivot to Pathways is to make certain you prepare. Prepare is a way to remind us all to understand our goals for the Pathways program. I want you to determine what you want to get out of Toastmasters with this new program. I want you to even to determine what you want to get out of Pathways as an educational system. Go in, take the assessment. When you take the assessment, it helps you to determine your paths. When you use the paths that will help you to develop the skills you want to develop, that will give you more information on being a more effective communicator and leader. And as I think more about choosing the paths, take into account I've provided you with a resource that you can use that will help you in choosing your paths. Toastmasters International has an awesome document called the Paths and Core Competencies document. What I'm sharing with you now, what I've given you as a download, is the first page to that extensive resource. The first page is more or less the summary page. I appreciate it because in summary format, it lets you know immediately the 5 core competencies along with the 11 paths. 5 core competencies. Number 1, public speaking. Number 2, interpersonal communication. Number 3, strategic leadership. Number 4, management. And number 5, confidence. The beauty of those 5 core competencies is the fact that all 11 paths will allow you to develop those core competencies in some way, shape, or form. Some way, shape, or form, of course, we know will be through speeches and through projects. That's how we will develop those core competencies. Yet notice something the handout is providing you with. In the 11th paths, it is highlighting for you where you can find all 5 of those core competencies being developed. All 11 paths will help you to develop core competency number 1 and core competency number 5. Yes, you heard me correctly. All 11 paths will help you to develop public speaking and confidence. Now, when it comes to core competency number 2, 3, and 4, that's where some variances occur. Some of the paths will allow you to develop the core competency of intercommunications, interpersonal communication skills. There are a few other paths that will help you to develop your strategic leadership skills. And then there are still a few paths that will help you to develop your management core competency skill. Each of the paths, as I said, will give you a chance to develop those core competencies. And this document is a great cheat sheet to help you understand which paths you can be in if you're highlighting certain core competencies. For instance, for me, the reason I joined Toastmasters over 20 years ago is because I wanted to make certain that I could develop my leadership skills. When I look at this core competencies list, I see core competency number 3, which is strategic leadership, as well as core competency number 4, which is management. Those are 2 core competencies that speak to me immediately. The beauty is I will always develop my communication skills because public speaking is in all 11 paths. Therefore, I can focus mainly on the paths such as dynamic leadership or innovative planning or even persuasive influence, which gives me more of the strategic leadership influence or more of the strategic leadership competency being developed within those paths. I love the cheat sheet. I also know that the assessment is going to give me multiple paths that I can choose from as well. Yet based on this document, you could actually choose your path without having to take the actual assessment. Members, seasoned and new, club officers, prepare. Prepare yourself for what you want to learn with Pathways. Prepare yourself to understand what Pathways will give you. You can use this handout again to make certain that you are learning which paths can help you. Again, the P in pivot is prepare. I, investigate. Investigate the Pathways program is our second action step in our pivot plan. Investigate the Pathways program because there are lots of details to the Pathways program. My opinion is when you investigate, it gives you the ability to research the ins and outs of the Pathways program. One of the tools that was referred to me about a year ago from one of my District 103 members was to make certain that I use the Navigator. My fellow Toastmaster colleague said, anyone that joins his club, he uses that as the resource to let his club members know more about pathways. He says the Navigator is a great resource, and if members simply start with the Navigator, they will feel so much more prepared to use the Pathways program. I love that advice that he provided to me. That's why I'm providing that advice to you. Make certain you learn the ins and outs of the Pathways program. Again, you can use the Navigator. Another resource that you can use to make certain that you're investigating the Pathways program is the Frequently Asked Questions page on the Toastmasters International website. They have an extensive FAQ page that they've provided right there on the website, in addition to the fact that they're including now FAQs in their Toastmasters magazine. If you're reading the online or even the hard copy version of the Toastmaster magazine, you will now start running across various questions regarding pathways along with various answers to those questions. Frequently asked questions can help you to have answers to some of your questions regarding pathways. Use the FAQ page to make certain you're investigating. Don't stop with the Navigator or the FAQ page though. Continue to investigate pathways. I say based on which district you're in, make certain you investigate pathways through your resources on your district website. The District 103 website, for instance, is beginning to build its resource page with more resources for pathways. There are a few resources right now that exist, yet we are still building on that website to make certain that you have access to special webinars. Hence, this webinar will be a resource. Also, webinars that are conducted by Sandra Washington, the District 103 Pathways Ambassador. She's providing webinars on a regular basis for which she's recording, and she's making certain you can have access to the content. Some of the content is for club officers in particular. Other content she's recording is for members in general, yet she's making certain she's focusing in on helping everyone to better navigate and investigate the Pathways program. Again, check out your district website for resources to help you investigate. Finally, there's a resource I've provided to you as a handout. And I want you to use the details on the 5 levels of pathways as a handout to help you investigate further the Pathways program. The details on the 5 pathways levels is a handout that I put together for a special workshop I did for my home club. It was a great way for me to help my members to better understand the 5 levels of every path and pathways. This is a document that I borrowed from details on actually the Toastmasters International website. I simply got the information from there, put it in a handout format, and provided it to my club members. This handout is now a resource I'm providing to you. As I said before, it gives you great information on what you will learn within each level of pathways. No matter which path you take, you will go through levels 1, mastering the fundamentals, level 2, learning your style, level 3, increasing knowledge, level 4, building skills, and level 5, demonstrating expertise. It gives you a quick overview of what the type of expectations are, meaning the assignments, the speeches, the special projects you'll need to complete. I've even included some bonus information on the handout, which gives you a quick checklist for how you can earn your Distinguished Toastmaster Award in Pathways. For those of you that are targeting your DTM within the next 2 years, you'll find the information for how you can obtain your DTM will be helpful right here on this handout. Again, with the FAQ page, with the Navigator, with your district's website, as well as the details on 5 pathways levels, this is enough information to get you going with learning the ins and outs of pathways. And again, it will help you to investigate. V, volunteer. V of volunteer is our 3rd action step in our Pivot to Pathways plan. When we pivot to pathways by volunteering, that simply means that we're going to help our club members to learn more about pathways. Pathways, I said, will be the program. We will have no other choice. Everyone starting next year, next club year on July 1st, we will all be in the Pathways program. That means we must learn more about the program. And if we're preparing and investigating, we're going to start learning. Yet, of course, as we're learning, we'll still need assistance. Fellow Toastmasters, I want you to volunteer. When you learn information about pathways, share that information with your club members. I used to have a member, actually I had a few members in my club, yet two members in particular I can remember. When we received the CL manual, do you guys remember that? The CL, the Competent Leadership Manual, was a little interesting with how to explain club roles, or even really what was interesting about the CL manual was we were so accustomed to not having a manual for so long. How do we now start incorporating a manual to tie into the meeting functionary roles? How does that all fit? Well, I had a member who decided, let me take a competent communication manual, all 10 of those speeches. I'm simply going to do speeches that will help members to learn about the CL manual. Clever, wasn't it? Very clever. That started a trend in my club. It started a trend where my club members who were more seasoned recognized I have to do speeches anyway. And if I'm doing speeches from the Competent Communication or CC manual, I can build my topics around the areas that my club members must know about. One of my members decided to teach us about goal setting using the CC manual. The other member taught us through using the CC manual about doing district leadership. Think about using your speeches, especially if you are working levels where your speeches can be about topics that are general in nature. Give speeches about pathways. Volunteer. Volunteer to share information that will help your new and your seasoned members to learn how to navigate the ins and outs of pathways. Members also recognize when you're in pathways, level 2 of pathways is the introduction to Toastmaster mentoring. In Toastmaster mentoring, we're volunteering to help another member, a fellow member, to become better acclimated to using pathways, to the club environment, and most importantly, to achieving their goals for being in Toastmasters in the first place. Volunteering is something that we are all doing naturally. As a member of a club, we volunteer to help our clubs run effectively because we serve in meeting functionary roles. As an officer of our club, we're volunteering to ensure our clubs are being managed appropriately. As a district leader, as an international leader, we're volunteering to make certain that the health of the organization exists so all of our members can become better and more effective communicators and leaders. We're volunteering, which means we know how to do the third action step in our pivot plan. Yet I'm just adding one final layer for you. With volunteering, in District 103, I want you to not only use the level 2 in pathways, I also want you to use a special program in District 103 called the Club Ambassador Program. The Club Ambassador Program is the program that allows us in District 103 to visit any Toastmaster club within the world. Where we go, we observe, we participate, we earn points. You'll notice there is information on the details of the program. You'll also learn with the form how many points you earn for the various actions you take whenever you visit a club. District 103 has this program and it's pretty popular. People want to become the Club Ambassador of the Year. Well, in learning the ins and outs of pathways, I would encourage you when you're a club ambassador, when you go and visit other clubs, if you have the opportunity to speak, share with them information on pathways. If you have an opportunity to visit another club and you are able to learn what the other club does, definitely highlight as one of their unique things they do, highlight anything they do in teaching their members about pathways. District 103 Toastmaster members, when you are a club ambassador, keep in mind you're earning points in order to be recognized as someone who has visited the most clubs, as someone who has earned the most points, or even as a club that has the most club ambassadors. All the details of the points and what the program is about can be found on the handout I provided to you of the Club Ambassador Program. This is a great way for you to volunteer. It adds with the mentoring that you do of your members, and most importantly, it adds with you being able to just help members know more about the Pathways program. Again, volunteer. O, overcome. That is our O, our fourth action step in our pivot plan. When you pivot and you overcome, that's reminding you to overcome your negative thinking and complaints about the Pathways program. Listen, I have to admit, the Pathways program was not something I was a fan of personally, simply because I believed it came to my district way too fast. However, I had no control over it. As district director in 2017, 2018, my district was brand new in that year. 6 months after our new existence, we received the Pathways program. Ah! That was a moment of screaming for me. That was a moment of, are you sure? I had that conversation with headquarters. Are you sure District 103 is supposed to get Pathways now? We just became a new district. I got much assurance, and I give a shout out to headquarters for making certain that I had the confidence in the fact that my new district will be okay. My new district will receive the support necessary, and yes, there will be bumps and glitches along the way, yet hang in there, everything will work out for the best. Well, the district didn't crumble. Yeah, we had some glitches, and yes, there were some complaints. Yeah, guess what? That first year, we survived. We got it rolled out. Our members started learning about it. We had great club ambassadors, hence Sandra Washington. Not just Sandra Washington, though. Sandra is the one that has taken the Pathways learning to a higher level for all of us. Yet there were a team of approximately 35, 36 club ambassadors and guides for District 103. Man, I'm just going through my head because I'm making the attempt to remember everyone and everything they did. I'm most grateful to them. I must say that they were ones that truly had to overcome first. They then had to influence us as members and club leaders to overcome as well. And when I tell you there was a lot of negativity about Pathways, there was a lot of negativity. And I must admit there still is. There's still members that have negative thinking. There's still members that have negative comments. There are still members and club officers that think negatively about the Pathways program. Once we can understand why we're thinking negatively, we then need to ask, how can we overcome that negative thinking? The key is, Pathways is here to stay. Therefore, we must find a way to see the positive side of the program. That is why I encourage you to prepare. That is why I encourage you to investigate. And that is why I encourage you to volunteer. All three of those steps of our pivot action plan will help us with overcoming our negative thinking. I want you to make certain that you get all of the negative thinking out of your system. And if you need to keep griping this year, this club year that is, go ahead, get it out your system. Yet as soon as my birthday comes, as soon as July 1st, 2020 comes, I want you to make certain that not another negative thought or thinking comes to mind. Not a negative comment, not another negative statement, not anything else negative. Now, I'm saying that for you, yet understand, I must walk in that as well. Overcome your negative thinking, overcome your negative complaints about Pathways, my fellow Toastmasters. Keep in mind, if we're going to be influencers of using this program, we must find the positive side to the program. And speaking of the positive side, that leads me to the final action step in our pivot plan, and that is talk up. Talk up to pathways. Yeah, I almost said talk up Toastmasters. And I must admit, that was an influencing factor to this last step in our action plan. Talk up pathways. Talking up pathways is a great way to make certain that we are telling other members the good that Pathways provides. Become supporters of the Pathways program. Make certain when you're investigating the ins and outs of the Pathways program, you can share that with other people. Become cheerleaders for the Pathways program. When you overcome your negative thinking about the Pathways program, you'll have the positive side to the program you can tell others about. And finally, I want you to make certain that when you talk up Pathways, that you are encouraging your members by giving them feedback with the feedback badges in the base camp part of Pathways. You didn't know about the feedback badges? Oh yeah, feedback badges. I'll admit, I'm not one to use social media. And those of you who are connected with me on social media know I'm not social on social media. Yet I do believe indirectly Pathways is going to help to influence my use of social media because there is a social media aspect to Pathways. The feedback badges will give you an opportunity to share with your members, to talk up for them the great things they're doing in Pathways. You can give your members the collaborative badge, the innovative badge, the inspirational badge, and the exceptional badge right there in base camp of Pathways. With this component of Pathways, it is helping us to talk up the program. It is helping us to be engaged with the program. It's helping us to volunteer and support the program. This is one of those elements of Pathways that will help us to talk up. We'll talk it up with each other, which means we'll feel confident in talking it up with our new members when they come on board as well. Pivot to Pathways, my fellow Toastmasters, by making sure you're using the 5-step action plan. And this talk up is the last part of the action plan. I believe when you use prepare, investigate, volunteer, overcome, and talk up, all 5 of those action steps will give you not only the energy you need to help support the Pathways program, yet it will give you the inspiration and motivation required for you to complete the Pathways program. Pivot to Pathways, my fellow Toastmasters. I know I provided you with a lot of information. There were quite a few details provided to you in this specially recorded webinar. I also recognize that many of the handouts that I provided to you, there may be questions about. That is why if you have questions for me, I want you to reach out to me. You can reach out to me via my email address at crlee2003@hotmail.com. crlee2003@hotmail.com will give you an opportunity to ask me questions that you have regarding the content or even the handouts of this webinar. If there are certain questions that are beyond my realm of expertise, know that I will be directing you to someone else, and that someone else more than likely will be headquarters. I will be directing you to the appropriate departments at Toastmasters International who will be able to further answer your questions or more explicitly answer your questions if I'm not able to. However, if you do have questions about anything that I covered in this webinar, definitely reach out to me at crlee2003@hotmail.com. My fellow Toastmasters, understand that we are pivoting to Pathways. A pivot simply means that it is a change in strategy without a change in vision. The vision is for us to all become more effective communicators and leaders. That vision is still the same, although the 2-track educational program has changed. See, the 2-track educational program has changed because we are now going to pivot to Pathways. Let's use that online learning resource as an experience to becoming better communicators and leaders. New members, seasoned members, and club officers, it's all on us. It is on us to use the program. And as I said, when we are able to pivot to Pathways by preparing, investigating, volunteering, overcoming, and talking up, we will get the true benefits of the program. Thank you for taking the time to be with me for this special webinar. Thank you for also being open to the information that I shared with you. Members, pivot to pathways. That is how you will make certain that you are achieving all of the goals for your membership in Toastmasters. This has been Cassandra, Diva of Dialogue Lee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to use divine inspiration vocally applied to assist you with pivoting to pathways. Until next time, be blessed, be safe, and pivot to pathways.